A single missile strike, a diplomatic spark, and suddenly the Middle East trembles on the brink. Tonight, Iran has been humiliated. Israel struck what it claims was an Iranian weapons depot in Syria, not by accident, but by design. Tehran is promising retaliation. Hezbollah is watching. The world is waiting. The central question looms. If Iran strikes back, will America be pulled into WW3? Stay with Red Alert Zone, because what happens next may feel far away, but its shockwaves could reach your doorstep. Late at night over central Syria. Bright explosions. Satellite images show infrastructure reduced to rubble. Israel issues a statement. The target was an Iranian supply hub, drones, missile parts, and logistics believed to feed militias across the region. Among the ruins, the dead are both militia fighters and civilians. The world watches in images, tears, outrage. Tehran responds fast. State media broadcasts condemning speeches from military leaders, calling the attack unjust aggression that cannot go unanswered. In Lebanon, Hezbollah channels warn of retaliation in kind. Iraqi militias release statements. Any Israeli strike will meet a proportional response, even if it means striking U.S. assets. Analysts in Jerusalem believe Israel wanted to send a message. Iran's shadow network is no longer immune. For Israel, the rationale is clear. The supply lines from Iran through Syria, through divisions loyal to Tehran, represent a growing threat. Missiles and drones being transferred, used to harass Israel's borders, threaten its deterrent. By striking this depot, Israel removes a node in the chain. But more importantly, it establishes that no Iranian asset, no matter how close to Tehran or how hidden, is safe. In Iran's calculation, silence is worse than reaction. If Tehran does not respond or is seen not to, its regional influence, its network of proxy groups, its deterrent posture will be questioned by allies and enemies alike. Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militia commanders will ask, if Iran cannot defend its network, what use is its backing? For Iran, the stakes are high. Reputational loss could weaken its control over militias, provoke internal criticism, and embolden adversaries like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and even the US. Already, reports emerge of US bases in Iraq and Syria going to heightened alert, supply convoys rerouted, warships adjusting patrols in the eastern Mediterranean. Diplomats in Washington, Riyadh, and Ankara are in emergency sessions. One leaked cable suggests US intelligence believes Iran is preparing multiple scenarios from proxy attacks to cyber strikes. Even if America does not want to be pulled in, the pressure builds. Tehran does not strike back immediately. History teaches them. A fast emotional response often plays into the enemy's hands. Instead, the Revolutionary Guard convenes behind closed doors. Military maps unfurled, targets circled, scenarios debated. They know Israel expects rocket fire from Gaza or southern Lebanon that is predictable, that is containable. But Iran is calculating something bigger, something that sends a message not just to Tel Aviv, but to Washington, Riyadh, and Brussels. Whispers emerge of a coordinated response, not a single strike, but a campaign across multiple fronts in Iraq. Shia militias prepare roadside bombs and rocket teams targeting US convoys. In the Gulf, Iranian fast boats shadow oil tankers, reminding the world that the Strait of Hormuz is always one step away from crisis. In cyberspace, Iranian-linked hacker groups test the firewalls of Western power grids, probing for weaknesses. In Lebanon, Hezbollah shifts units to the border, moving long-range rockets into hidden launch sites. The logic is clear. Make Israel and America feel surrounded, pressured, forced to react on multiple fronts, stretch their resources, test their resolve. Meanwhile, Israel cannot stand still. The political leadership, already under domestic criticism, views restraint as weakness. Intelligence chiefs advise preemptive action. Within hours, more Israeli jets roar over Syrian skies. This time, the targets are not just depots, but also air defense systems believed to shield Iranian advisors. The strikes are surgical, yet the explosions echo across Damascus suburbs. Each detonation adds fuel to the fire of outrage. The US faces a dilemma. President's advisors gather in the Situation Room, voices raised, maps projected. Do they double down on deterrence, sending more aircraft carriers to the region, risking direct entanglement? Or do they press Israel to scale back, knowing that Washington will bear the costs of escalation? Publicly, the White House issues calm, carefully worded statements. Privately, Pentagon planners activate contingency operations, evacuation protocols for embassies, reinforcement orders for bases in Qatar and Bahrain, naval redeployments across the Mediterranean and European capitals. Unease grows. NATO, already stretched by commitments in Eastern Europe, now faces the possibility of a two-front crisis. Diplomats whisper that if Iran strikes NATO assets, even indirectly, Article 5 discussions could ignite. The alliance does not want war in the Middle East, but credibility is at stake. A cyber attack on a European bank, an explosion at an energy terminal, either could drag NATO further than it wants to go. Markets react faster than politicians. Oil prices spike within hours. Futures soar. Airlines scramble. Consumers panic by fuel. Stock markets dip. The global economy, already fragile, feels the tremors. For ordinary families in America and Europe, the crisis no longer feels distant. It shows up at the gas pump, in grocery store bills, in uncertainty about jobs and stability. Back in Tehran, propaganda machines go into overdrive. State TV broadcasts images of funerals, of weeping families draped in flags, of commanders vowing revenge. For the Iranian public, this is framed not as an isolated incident but as another chapter in a long war of survival against Zionist and American aggression. The regime uses it to rally support, silence dissent, and consolidate power. Nationalist fervor builds, and with it, the expectation of retaliation grows heavier. Israel too turns to information warfare. Press conferences emphasize precision, necessity, self-defense. Analysts on Israeli TV explain that Iran's supply lines are a clear and present danger. They argue, if we don't strike now, we'll face bigger threats tomorrow. But even as they speak, air raid sirens wail in northern Israel. A volley of rockets arcs across the border, fired by Hezbollah, some intercepted, some striking homes and fields. The escalation Tehran wanted has begun. And this is where the spiral reveals its true danger: miscalculation. Every strike invites a counterstrike, every delay tempts preemption, every death in flames demands for vengeance. Neither side wants a full-scale regional war, but both are trapped by pride, fear, and the pressure of their allies. America stands at the center of this storm, reluctant yet unable to detach itself, because once us soldiers, bases or ships are hit, whether by design or accident, the president will face the same question every leader before him has faced. Do we hold back or do we strike? Attention is now no longer theoretical, it is operational. The countdown to wider war has already started ticking. The danger of this conflict is not only what happens between Israel and Iran. The true nightmare is how quickly it can spiral outward, dragging in powers that never intended to fight. That is how regional wars transform into global ones, and history is full of examples. The Balkans in 1914, Korea in 1950, even the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. Local flashpoints become the spark that lights the world. The Middle East today stands at the edge of that same possibility. Let us trace the pathways. Imagine this: a Hezbollah rocket barrage overwhelms Israeli air defenses. One rocket slams into an apartment block in Haifa, killing families. Israel responds with a massive strike into Lebanon. Hezbollah retaliates with long-range missiles reaching Tel Aviv's business district. Casualties mount. Panic spreads. Tel Aviv Stock Exchange shutters. The Israeli government declares a state of emergency and calls up reserves. At the same time, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq fire rockets at a U.S. base near Erbil. American soldiers are wounded. Washington faces the decision it dreads: retaliate directly against Iran, or risk appearing weak. The Pentagon advises limited airstrikes on militia camps, but Iranian leaders announce that any U.S. strike on its territory will be treated as an act of war. The line between proxy conflict and direct confrontation blurs. In the Gulf, tankers become floating targets. Insurance companies hike rates. Some shipping firms refuse to transit Hormuz altogether. Within days, oil shipments plummet. Prices explode. $120 a barrel. $140. Gas stations in Europe and the US sea lines stretching around blocks. Governments talk about releasing strategic reserves, but markets know reserves are limited. The panic becomes self-sustaining. Ordinary citizens begin to feel the war in their wallets long before they see it on their screens. Cyber becomes the invisible front. A blackout in Athens. A banking disruption in Frankfurt. It's Miz glitching in Chicago. Each incident is small, temporary, but enough to sow doubt. Is it technical failure, or is it cyber warfare? Confidence erodes. In democracies, fear spreads faster than fire. Politicians scramble for answers, pointing fingers across borders. China watches carefully, officially neutral. Beijing benefits from America's distraction. Energy flows from Iran become lifelines for Chinese industry, while Western economies stumble. At the UN, Chinese diplomats block resolutions that condemn Tehran, arguing for balance. Quietly, China increases its naval patrols in the Indian Ocean, signaling its role as a global counterweight. Russia, already entangled in Ukraine, finds opportunity to. Moscow frames the Middle East war as proof of Western double standards. Intervention when Israel is threatened, silence when others are. Russian state media pumps that narrative daily. Back in Washington, the debate hardens. Hawks demand strikes on Iranian soil. Doves warn of another endless war. Public opinion fractures. Veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan speak out against new deployments, while families of soldiers demand strong protection. Congress divides, but the president cannot wait for consensus. Events move too quickly. Each rocket, each cyberattack, each oil shock narrows the options. In Israel, the population braces for a war of survival. Bomb shelters reopen. Drills become routine. Daily life reshaped by alerts and uncertainty. Children sleep underground. Hospitals stretch thin. The Israeli leadership frames it as existential. If we do not fight now, we may not survive later. Iran frames it as liberation. This is the moment to end Zionist aggression once and for all. Both sides elevate rhetoric to existential stakes. That is the point where wars become unstoppable, when compromise feels like betrayal. NATO is the silent giant in this picture. Its forces are not yet on the battlefield, but its credibility hangs by a thread. If Iranian or Hezbollah strikes touch NATO territory, even accidentally, Article 5 could be invoked. The threshold is ambiguous, but ambiguity can be dangerous. Remember, NATO was not designed for patience. It was designed for deterrence. One attack on one ally is an attack on all. That logic, once triggered, can cascade faster than politics can control. And then comes the wild card. Escalation by mistake. A misfired missile. A drone straying into the wrong airspace. A cyberattack traced rightly or wrongly to Tehran. These are not hypotheticals. In modern war, they happen every day. Each one is a potential spark. Imagine a NATO aircraft shot down over Syria. Imagine an Iranian warship colliding with a US destroyer in the Gulf. Imagine a cyber strike taking down New York's stock exchange for one trading day. Any one of these could flip caution into confrontation. The truth is this: neither side wants a world war, but both sides are locked in positions that make one more likely. Iran cannot back down without losing face. Israel cannot stop without inviting more attacks. The US cannot detach without sacrificing credibility. NATO cannot remain neutral if its members are struck. And China and Russia cannot resist using the chaos to their advantage. Each actor is rational on its own terms, but together, their rationality produces irrational risk. What does this mean for ordinary people in America, Europe, and beyond? It means vulnerability. Vulnerability in energy, in digital networks, in markets, in daily life. The war will not wait for CNN to broadcast breaking news. It will arrive in sudden shortages, in price spikes, in alerts on your phone. The shockwaves will cross oceans at the speed of markets and data. And if the spiral continues, the next headlines could make today's look tame. That is why this conflict matters now, not later. Because the decisions made in the next 48 hours, in Tehran, in Tel Aviv, in Washington, in Brussels, could determine whether this crisis remains a brutal regional war or escalates into the first global war of the 21st century. The question is not whether the fire will burn. The question is, how far will the flame spread before someone, anyone, finds the courage to stop it?